And then I'm supposed to say a bit about Bildung in more general terms. And there are two aspects of Bildung. There are many aspects of Bildung, but one of them is what we know about the world. You can say the horizons that we have. How much do we know? How much math and geography? Do we know a language? All these things. But that's just one aspect. The other aspect is our emotional depth, our sense of morality, our moral aspirations, our ability to distinguish between good and bad. And that is also a Bildung process. And it's, I mean, there are results in this, and there's a process towards being a more responsible, open, um, independent, autonomous person, and that is part of Bildung. And that is what I am going to talk a bit about now and illustrate what that is all about. The word Bildung we have from German, and we particularly have it from philosophers like Herder and Goethe and Schiller and Fichte and Hegel, and I'm going to pick out Friedrich Schiller and what he said about Bildung. And what he said was that there are three kinds of people. And the first kind of person is the person who is in the throes of his emotions. And I brought a little fellow here to illustrate the first kind of person. And I can tip the screen a little bit here so we can see more of him. So this is the person who is in the throes of his emotions. And what does that mean? It means that he is not free, because whenever he feels like doing something, he's just going to do it. So he is not free. But we can grow out of this. We can learn to become a team player on behalf of society and let the norms of society, the expectations of others, overrule our emotions. And I brought somebody else to be sort of the rational person, as Schiller called it, the person who has made the rationalities, the rationales, the thinking of society his or her own. The problem is that if you always try to live up to what society expects, you're not free either. So you have to transcend that and be able to both know the norms and moral values of society, and to be able to feel your own emotions. Because if you can do that, you can become a moral person. And I brought a little moral person here as well. So this is what Schiller calls the moral person. That's when you can have freedom, autonomy from others, but you can also be a team player on behalf of society. And why did Schiller write about this? Well, he wrote about it in the 1790s, right after the French Revolution. And he was terrified because of the bloodbath after the French Revolution, as was the rest of Europe. And what he said was, there's only one of these three guys who can handle political freedom. It's not this guy who's in the throes of his emotions, because when he's seen the bloodshed and the decapitation of the emperor or the king, he wants more blood and he cannot control himself. He's on a frenzy. He's not going to stop. And then there's the person who takes his clues and values from others. He's just going to look at that guy and say, okay, wow, is this what we're doing? Okay, well, let's have some more revolution then. So he's not free to make up his own mind. The only person who can handle political freedom is the moral person, who can sort of step outside other people's expectations and say, you know what, guys, this revolution stuff, this bloodshed, that's not the right thing to do. It is morally wrong, and you got to stop it. So the moral person, according to Friedrich Schiller, is the only one who can handle political freedom. And this process in life, going from being in the throes of your emotions to living up to everybody else's expectations, to becoming an autonomous, responsible individual who can make up his own mind, is a Bildung process, and this result is also Bildung. What Schiller says is that, how do we go through this process? He says aesthetics, the arts. In order to calm down our emotions, we need soothing, calming arts that calm us down. And that's how we become good and rational citizens. Then when we've been rational and peaceful and listening to other people's clues for a while, that is when we need some aesthetics that can wake us up and make us feel angry and involved and engaged and become the moral person who can feel his own emotions again. So that is the Bildung from Friedrich Schiller, and this whole philosophy, of course, became part of Romanticism. It became part of the whole wave of Sturm und Drang, but it also became part of how we created the democracies and nation states that we have today. We count on each other being capable of making our own moral choices and being responsible. And if we just briefly talk a bit about the corona, different governments have had different approaches to their citizens. And I'm not going to name which countries are considering their citizens the emotional people, or which the governments are considering their citizens the rational people, but I am going to suggest that the Swedish government has assumed that the Swedes could be morally responsible people even without changes in the legislation, and being capable of just doing the right thing because they felt it was the right thing to do. So this has implications for our society, just as it has implications for ourselves as individuals. And I hope that over the next 2 days we can talk about how we create more of this development, and also about how we can use aesthetics and not just philosophy or formal education, and not just think of Bildung as the sort of horizontal plane of all the knowledge that we need to have, but also how we are as citizens and what we expect from ourselves and from others. Thank you.